Good afternoon, everybody. It's 1 o'clock and it's time for another of the Spark webinars that we've got on today. Today, we've got two companies that are going to be presenting to you today. Frog Mobility. We have Sean Flood and Lee Roche. Sean's from Donegal. And Frog is an e-scooter company that is expanding rapidly across Europe at the moment, which is operated by a team that's already run a successful identical business in the US. So that's Frog Mobility. And after that, we've got Net Feasa and Mike Fitzgerald from Dingle. And Net Feasa is an IoT device that's fixing a big problem in global logistics. And Mike will go through about that with you very shortly. Before we do that, I just really wanted to talk to you about a couple of other things. We've got three exciting companies that are very shortly going to be joining the platform. We have Halo SOS, which is a company that's actually already raised with us a couple of years ago and is re-raising again at the for a next round, which is very exciting. And that's with Fiona Maloney. She'll be joining us on the platform very soon. Also, we have Peckish and Paul O'Shea. Paul and Peckish are a Cork-based company that are helping restaurants and people with food intolerances understand their dietary their dietary program a little bit better and make it more easily for them to order food. And then we've got Unihaven as well. Brian McDonald will be soon coming onto the platform, and that is an educational piece of technology that I think you'll find very interesting as well. But back to the business of the day. I just want to talk to you quickly about EIS as well. Many of the companies on the platform are EIS, which is a nice tax incentive for any Irish taxpayers to avail of. It's a 40% tax back, so very great, a very good incentive for you to actually avail of and get some money back from your investments that you make. And also, don't forget that any investment you make on a Spark platform, it costs you, the investor, zero commission, zero management fee as well. So again, it's very simple. You pay your investment amount across, and that is all you need to do. You'll never be asked for another penny from that. But anyway, first of all, Sean and Lee, perhaps you can switch on your cameras and we can kind of share the screen together. Sean was the founder of and CEO of Gotcha Mobility. Gotcha Mobility was a US-based company, a micro-mobility company, and was ultimately one of the 5 largest shared mobility companies in the US. Gotcha was sold to a publicly traded company back in 2019. And prior to selling, Gotcha had won and secured over 100 permits to operate in US cities and universities and had over 10,000 assets under management. Sean is an advisor to a number of businesses in both Europe and the US and is founder member of EFO Ventures, which is an investment fund for investing in early stage businesses. Sean has a BSc in entrepreneurial studies from Florida State University and is a native of the US, but as I said, now resides in Donegal. Frog is already operating in 8 markets and plans to increase this to over 75 in the next 3 years. The business is currently generating revenues and is site level cash flow positive and on track to have an ARR of over 400,000 this year. It's really well positioned. Sean has already had an exit, as I just said, and the two previous micromobility businesses that we've had on the platform have performed have already grown significantly, performed very well for the investors that invested in them. So I'm confident that Frog will do exactly the same. Especially with the relaxation of restrictions in many of the jurisdictions that they're operating in. It will be definitely a prime takeover target with the number of assets and licenses that we'll have. So Frog is already live on the site and has already received 130,000 euros worth of investment and is at 30% of its target. It's an EIS company. The pre-money valuation is 7 million. And with that EIS, it gives an effective valuation of 4.2 million. So Lee and Sean, you're both very welcome.
Thanks, Chris. Cheers for having us. So I'm Lee Roche, co-founder and CEO at Frog Mobility, Ireland's fastest growing shared micromobility operator. Today, I'm in Lisbon tightening up operations, and Sean is in our new warehouse about 1 hour south of Madrid. Today, Sean's going to take the presentation to make things more efficient than the question and answers. I'll give a quick introduction and pass it over to Sean. So a little bit about Frog. Frog partners with communities worldwide to provide a safe and sustainable form of public transport. We design and deploy high quality electric mobility devices to reduce dependence on gas-powered vehicles. Our vision is simple. It's to move people around in a more safe and sustainable way. So you may ask, what is the problem worth solving? Well, there's a lot of problems worth solving. Ours are climate change and congestion. We at Frog believe that shared micromobility can help with both of these problems. We believe the solution is shared micromobility devices for urban travel. With Frog's user-friendly app, it's easy to engage, find a device in a convenient location, and off you go. Also, a big part of this is to partner with local municipalities and to focus on local operations to drive profitability at site level. So I'll pass you over to Sean for the presentation, and I look forward to your guys' questions and answers. Cheers.
Thank you, Lee. I'm Sean Flood. I'm the co-founder of Frog Mobility. And like Chris said, I've been in shared micromobility in the US for over 14 years. So an industry that I'm both passionate about and believe that I know really well. The market size of shared mobility today is 250 billion euros. So as Lee mentioned, we're doing a lot of good, both from a congestion of our cities and sustainability from a planet standpoint. But the size of the market is massive, and we're at the very beginning of it. You look at shared bikes and shared scooters, electric around the world, that has only really been in scale for 3 to 4 years and has already begun a massive growth. Frog Mobility was launched in a very difficult time. We launched this business in the beginning of COVID. During that period of time, our desire is to focus solely on the European market, headquartered right here in Ireland. In that period of time, we were live in 8 markets, 2 countries, so Poland and Portugal. And over the next 3 years, our plan is to scale to 75 plus markets. The business model is simple and straightforward. We partner with municipalities. We deploy electric devices today, e-scooters and e-bikes. In partnership with that municipality, a user downloads the proprietary Frog Mobility app, allows them to locate and rent these devices. They pay an unlocked fee, and then for the time that they use the device, those funds are then directly transferred through that app to Frog Mobility. Again, being able to control that operation and business model has made us very efficient during a very difficult time, and we've been able to create site level profitability over the past year. We're live in 8 markets. In those 2 countries. And again, during COVID, we were able to build a business that has a 400,000 euro annual run rate and already working toward profitability and scale. We've also secured permits going forward. So excited to announce to this group, like Lee mentioned, I'm in Spain, he's in Lisbon with the team. We've secured 5 new markets in Spain, and announcements will be coming out this week. But they'll be the first truly multimodal locations, meaning we'll have e-scooters and now e-mopeds, allowing different people to use different products. So that's only going to speed our scale over the next year. One thing that makes Frog very unique in this space is our technology and technology partners. The team has worked very hard over the past 2 years to create technology that's going to drive not only a better rider experience, but profitability for the business. Those include a partnership with a US company called Hello Llama that has developed helmet detection, sidewalk detection, all using AI and computer vision built directly onto our hardware. So this will allow us to determine if users are riding on sidewalks where they're not supposed to be, and they'll be in the street and bike path where they're supposed to be, and it'll create a significantly safer experience, also driving our insurance costs down, which again will add to the bottom line. We've partnered with a company called Element to design all of our scooters, e-bikes, and mopeds. This allows us to have quality control from the very beginning, manage the supply chain, and then deliver what we feel to be a superior product to the rider, differentiating us from our competitors. We also have just announced a partnership with Jump Watts that we're going to be piloting in Lisbon. This allows us to remote operate scooters. So instead of having to pay individuals to go out and move product from one hub to another, or scooters that are in the wrong area, we can teleoperate that device, which is fantastic to say out loud, but moving a scooter from one location to another safely, efficiently, and at a very, very low cost per device. Our goal as we grow, once we close this round, is to continue our expansion. So we'll open an additional 10 markets by the end of Q2, 5 of which will be here in Spain that we've just secured. And then we'll continue that deployment to 75 plus over the next 3 years. And we feel very strongly that with our funnel and the partnerships we have with municipalities and our singular focus on Europe, we'll be able to achieve that. Today, we have 2,200 scooters that are now coming out of hibernation in some of the markets, and we project that growing to over 11,000 in the next 3 years. I think one of the things that makes this company very unique, both from a presentation standpoint to municipalities, but to investors, is the quality of team that we've put together. Myself and Dave Talsma owned and operated a shared mobility business for over 13 years. We were able to grow that to over 100 exclusive permits in the US and transfer that business through a public sale 2.5 years ago. So we have spent the time as we built Frog with Lee and the team here in Ireland to make sure that we've not only have the right products, but we have the right team who knows how to build and scale this business. So we're very proud of that team. It's continuing to grow, and being able to do that right in Ireland is very important to myself and the team. Our financials today, we have an ARR of 400,000, no debt on the balance sheet. We own all 2,200 of our assets free and clear. We project a 2022 ARR of 2.5 million euros. And we've already invested over 200,000 euros in the business to get it off the ground. I think as we look at the business this past year in COVID, where we had to open and close markets, we were still able to build a business with a 400,000 euro ARR. And as we bring those units back to life and things begin to open up, people are really embracing our products. They need these assets to move around their municipalities, and driving toward that 2.5, we feel great about. From a technology standpoint, we've created a proprietary app. This allows us to create different features that'll happen in different markets. Hopefully one of those markets is Ireland, as legislation becomes legal to operate these devices. But our technology allows us to be agile and create a unique experience in each one of our markets. The other part is the hardware itself. For those of you on the call who have maybe ridden an e-scooter before, the quality of that product is paramount. We've spent 1.5 years designing this new device that, from a technology standpoint, a rider experience technology is second to none. Some of those features include things like turn signals that make it a safer experience, a wider footboard and bigger tire, a swappable battery that makes it more efficient to operate. So we're very excited to bring this device to these markets over the next few months. We do feel that the future of this industry is multimodal. E-scooters are fantastic and they solve a very, very big need, but different riders need a different vehicle. So we've created an e-bike that we're rolling out in Lisbon, and our new e-moped that will be rolling out in the 5 markets here in Spain. Very excited because it opens up an entire group of people who now feel that there's a product that fits their need and that they're comfortable with, only driving our ridership and hence our revenue and profitability. There is competition in the space. As you'd imagine, it's 250 billion euros today and growing, but they're typically broken into 2 groups: the large competitors like Voitir, Bird, and Lime, and then regional players. We look at Frog as focusing on regional markets that are exclusive or semi-exclusive, that are defensible. And as we build that business, we feel that that strategy makes us a strong acquisition target for the people at the top here. We saw this exact same thing play out in the United States. And as we build Frog in Europe, we're looking to duplicate that same strategy. In summary, we're raising 350 million euros at a pre-money of 7 million. Excited to be on the Spark platform. It allows investors to join for as little as as €100. For Lee, myself, and the team, we love the opportunity to bring as many partners in on this ride as we build what will not only be the most profitable and fastest growing Irish mobility company, but we think will really do a lot of good, again, right here from Ireland. I'm going to pause there. I'd love any sort of Q&A.
Absolutely, Sean, thank you very much indeed. And yes, we've got questions already coming in. So can I just remind people that if you do have a question, to put it into the Q&A element to the Zoom call, where we can see them and we can then kind of pose those over to Sean. But the first one I have here, what makes Frog more investable than other mobility companies? Perhaps you can answer. Well, first of all, actually, Sean, if you want to pause or take close your sharing of a screen, then we can see everybody in a bit more detail. Yeah, what makes Frog more investable than other mobility companies? Perhaps you can answer that one, please.
I think after doing this for 13 years, focusing on how you allocate dollars and where those funds go to is paramount. Driving profitability at the site level is the only way for these businesses to continue to grow and scale. Fortunately for us, a lot of our competitors don't do that. They burden the business with a lot of undue overhead, and we don't. So we outsource a lot of our partnerships that allow us to decrease the OpEx expenses, driving profitability. As an investor myself, it's very, very important that this business be profitable and grown correctly. So there's that on the financials. And then by focusing on the quality of hardware, we're able to use an asset for significantly longer. Our competitors are sub 12 months, in some cases 6 months that their assets will last. We've designed purpose-built electric vehicles that we believe will last for 3, 5, 7 years in some cases, allowing us a better ROI on the hardware itself.
Very good, very good. Fergal, over to you.
Yeah, hi Sean, hi Lee. Just have one in regarding the funds, the utilization of the funds. What's the plan for the money raised in the platform?
Yep. So our business development team has done a great job of lighting the runway with permits and markets that are waiting for product. We're looking at using these funds for expansion. So we've got some team hires that'll be right here in Ireland, but a majority of the funds are used to purchase new assets that will deploy into these new markets throughout mainland Europe.
Very good. What is the theft technical issue experience, and how have you addressed it? So, you know, obviously there are examples of theft of these. How do you overcome those issues?
Yeah, sure. So we've spent a lot of time working with our technology partner on the device itself, and we've designed built-in GPS on the IoTs that are extremely accurate and getting more accurate. So we've built in alarms to the devices that will trigger people stealing them. But I'll tell you, the theft that we've had historically, the accuracy of those GPSs and the ability to work with local law enforcement has allowed us to track those devices and retrieve them. We've experienced kind of sub 3% of loss in a fleet. Historically, by an industry standard, it's probably 10 to 12. So I think that's the combination of the technology and the market size where we operate in. We, by business, don't go into Lisbon with 13 operators and deploy 5,000 devices. There's a lot more theft in those markets. The mid-sized municipal markets where we're the only or one of 2 or 3 players allows us to control the assets and I think prevent a lot of loss.
Excellent. I have a couple of questions here just regarding the supply chain and the challenges around it. Obviously, recent events. How are you handling it, guys? Or what's your solutions?
Yeah. So we've been fortunate enough in a few categories. We've worked with these warehouses for a long time. We had acquired assets pre a lot of the supply chain challenges. So the 2,200 assets that we have are already in Europe. So we owned them at a lower cost. We didn't have to pay high shipping and a lot of the fees associated with it. So we feel great about the current inventory we have. To protect against that, one of the reasons I'm here in Spain in this warehouse is we're now looking to manufacture all that product in Spain, allowing us to decrease the cost of the assets, but also control that supply chain and ability to deploy faster. So we are definitely moving away from any sort of kind of long-term reliance on Southeast Asia, where we've historically seen prices at the component level and prices of shipping go up. So that's our plan for 23 and beyond.
Excellent.
Very good. Question in here from one of our investors in Galway. I live in Galway and a mobility company has just recently started here. What differentiates Frog from such a mobility offering, and also what exclusivity can Frog get with an offering already here?
Great. So the Galway lads at Bright are a really great team. So congrats to their launching of e-bikes. I think that's a great example. There are localized operators all around the world, and we think that that's important, right? That there's going to be a local player who's from the community. I think the way Frog views it is we can come in addition to these local and mid-sized players and kind of partner with them. In your situation, that operator is really focused on e-bikes. So we would look to partner with them and the city of Galway to bring in stand-up e-scooters and could really operate side by side. And typically what we found is the more shared mobility devices that are operated correctly, it typically helps the industry. The goal here, right, is to decrease the dependency on single occupancy vehicles. So having a local e-bike operator and then a scooter operator like Frog is really a perfect situation. So we actually hope for that exact situation in Galway after legislation is passed in the next few months.
Very good. Very good.
Excellent. Very important question here, actually. Have you got much user experience and feedback?
Yeah. So one thing here that's been more unique than operating in the US are the different languages that we operate in. So one of the first user experiences we really focused on within the app was the languages and how we communicated the service and the need through both a language and the visual. So we spent a lot of time and resources last year doing that. The feedback from a user experience there has been great. It was not easy, but took a lot of time to make sure that we capture it. And now it's a very important kind of SOP, standard operating procedure, as we deploy further to make sure that that user experience on the app is a positive one in different countries. And the feedback from the devices, we couldn't be more thrilled of. We spent a lot of time to make sure that they felt like industrial devices, not toys, so that people felt safe on them. And in the 8 markets we launched in last year and the ones that we've been demoing over the past few months, the feedback we've gotten is your device feels like an industrial grade, where we've had a lot that have felt more toyish. And it's good to hear. I think the industry is going where we're going, which is better quality devices so that everybody feels safer on it. And the goal is for Frog to help kind of lead that charge here in Europe.
Very good. There's double question here. You have no debt on the balance sheet. So why would that be, given it's probably cheaper form of financing if it's available? That's the first element. And also, are the prospective users sticky? I.e., is there an incentive to actually continue to use Frog on an ongoing basis?
Yep. So on the first one, I think we would continue after we finish this raise. The business will continue to need investment. I think our goal to kind of protect investor equity is to use these funds, scale, generate more revenue, and then if we can at that point use a debt instead of equity that protects all of us from a dilution standpoint, we'd be very much in favor of it. The real way to make it happen is to focus on those economics at the site level that then allows us to take on the right type of debt that we're funding through ridership. So very much part of our kind of financial plan going forward. And one of the reasons we don't have debt today is we wanted to have assets that we owned free and clear to make the business more attractive. Yes, there is some stickiness to it. People are definitely shrinking the number of apps that they want to have. And we try to focus again on markets that are 3 or less, so that a user doesn't have a choice of 15 and multiple assets. In those markets, there's really no stickiness. It's what scooter's closest to you and what app, do you have easy access to. We find in our markets, they're in the app. Typical riders are using the devices 2 to 3 times a week. These are much more, to and from work, running errands, opposed to just joyriding. So it becomes kind of part of their daily use. So there is some stickiness once we can get them to use it. But we need to focus on the right market in order to have that relationship with the rider.
Very good.
Brilliant. So a good question here as well, just regarding just investments and the long term. Given you're in multiple markets, that would obviously mean that you're in multiple kind of multiple trading entities. Will investment in the holding company, will the investment be in the holding company or in the various subsidiaries, or how does it look from an investor point of view?
So thanks for asking. So all of the investment sits in Frog Mobility Limited, an Irish company. Any of the entities that we open in different markets in order to do business with those, i.e. Portugal requires an entity that is Portuguese, that is 100% owned by Frog Mobility. So all of the equity ownership, eventually liquidity, will happen at the Frog Mobility Limited. And that's where, as partners, all of your investments would sit. Same place that my investment sits.
Excellent.
Right, we're coming up to the time limit, but one more question here. There have been reports of fire safety risks with charging with other scooters and e-bikes. How does Frog manage this type of risk?
Yep, a few things. One, we only charge in warehouses. There are a lot of companies, if you Google, who are allowing people to charge in their home and outsourcing that responsibility. We don't. In every one of our markets, we have a warehouse where we charge the vehicles. There are fire suppression requirements that we have for each of those to protect against it. And then the largest is we don't allow batteries to be charged overnight without supervision. That's probably the most dangerous, is people leaving a warehouse full of charging batteries with nobody there. And we've spent a lot of time to make sure that we have the right kind of operating procedures to protect against that.
Very good. Very good. Okay, right. Well, guys, thanks very much. I think we've reached our time limit. There's loads more questions here, but we'll get you to answer those offline and we can post those at a later stage. But guys, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate that. And Virgil, thanks very much for asking the questions. So if I get you guys to switch off your cameras, and what I'll do is I'll get Mike to come on. Mike is the CEO and chairman of Net Feasa. Mike is a software engineer. Worked for Ericsson back in 1991 and transitioned into the sales and marketing side of the business, and was ultimately a director of business unit in China. He co-founded the indigenous Irish software company Altabridge back in 2002, and between 2000 and 2015 has been a founding investor or a board member in several businesses. He graduated from UCC in 1988 in computers and maths, and also from Stanford University Graduate School of Business in 2008. In 2009, he was named Ernst & Young or EY's Irish Entrepreneur of the Year. And that's a good synopsis of Mike. But of the business, Net Feasa has developed a revolutionary way of tracking shipping containers around the globe, helping to save shipping companies multiple millions of dollars per annum. It's already got revenues of over 300,000, and it's projecting revenues of 7 million in year 3. Net Feasa is now live on the site and has already received 290,000 euros worth of investment from the Spark investors, and is at 82% of its target, so almost there. Pre-money valuation is 4.7 million. And that's where it stands at the moment. So Mike, you're very welcome. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Chris.
Perhaps you'd like to share your screen, and I'll let you go on with your presentation.
Perfect. Thanks a lot. Thanks, guys. I'll get straight to it because I know everyone's busy this afternoon. Thanks for
just to remind everybody, if they've got questions, please enter them into the Q&A, and we'll fire them on to Mike after the presentation's over. So Mike, I'll leave it over to you.
Okay, guys, everyone can see my screen there, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. Looks good.
Okay, so tracking a container, that's what the Net Feasa story is about. We've started about 5 years ago testing and trying different aspects of IoT technology. So we've had a huge experience from smart agriculture, smart water, smart transport. But over time, we nudged more and more into the port environment, into the container tracking environment from necessity, from effectively evolving with our intelligence to understanding that there was a gap here. 3 simple problems. If you want to track a container, the tracking device must stay on the container for over 10 years. Nothing out there does that. Lots of little devices are coming onto the market, but they're devices that, say, for example, were used for, let's call it refrigeration monitoring. What we're doing is working with Tyndall Research Institute in Ireland for the last couple of years on under a formal European-wide project where we're working specifically to address energy harvesting and the management of the power. So it's easy to bring in solar power, but it's very difficult to manage it so that we only use energy when we need to. And we'll get to the point of what we're doing to make that quite creative. The other side is it's got to be secure. There's no point tracking a container if the door can be opened and things can be stolen, or if you can actually just break off the device. So it's very important that the locking mechanism and that the alert of the opening of a container is accurate. We're patenting that technology before anything else. And we're in the process of doing that over the last several months. We do all of our testing, all of our work with actual shipping companies in port and on ships. And the other third part is machine learning and artificial intelligence. We have lots of networks deployed. We have lots of devices that we're testing, and we're bringing all that data into our network operations center, and we're continuously putting it through algorithms to learn more and more about how this container is moving. Because the art of winning will be about actually predicting how this is moving, where it's moving, and how it moves between the different aspects of the supply chain. And to give you an example, we went live with the world's first IoT wireless networks on ships. So we're already tracking data from containers on live ships in the Pacific right now. So the biggest US shipping company, all of their ships are taking Net Feasa technology. We're live on board and we're monitoring the temperature of the containers. They come up through our network, and therefore the data that we're compiling, we're able to use for other lateral areas. And one of the particular areas we went back to over a year ago to this company, we said, we're able to spot from the data that we're gathering on temperature when you take a container on and off a ship. And they've never been able to do that. Now, most people would think because of mobile phone technology, it should be pretty easy to determine when a container is picked up off a truck and dropped onto a ship. As it stands today with tracking technology, the only way they can do that definitively is to put a system onto the crane, which is hugely expensive. So if you look at the supply chain and you look at all these people talking about visibility, what they're really saying is there's a really expensive network as you come in the gate, trying to figure out when a container passes by that gate. Millions of dollars being paid for by ports. Then the container goes down through the yard on a truck, which is obviously being tracked, but then that's a truck connected to a trucking company that's not part of that whole supply chain. It's just a piece of the side of it. And therefore they have to communicate back to dispatchers who have to tell the supply chain where they are. They get to the ship, they've got to go to the crane. So the companies that are out there at the moment making lots of money are trying to represent all of this data from all of these different systems under one platform, which involves dozens and dozens of IT people connecting into dozens and dozens of systems. If you put a system on the side of the container, all of these types of problems go away. And you get to this part here, where we picked up all of the containers, all the data relating to the movement of containers from the port and onto the ship, from the ship back onto the apron. And we definitively, with 100% accuracy, put forward to the shipping company when and how and what time their containers are moved on and off the ship. They were blown away by this. They went to their work orders, they checked each one, they cross-referenced each one. And we said, that was the opportunity. If we could do that at the ship, we could do that getting onto the truck, we could do it getting onto the train, and we could get it taking it off the truck at the factory. And for the first time in the supply chain, a tracking device on a container would actually deliver all the important pieces of information. So if we start on the left at the factory, we're gathering a huge amount of data out of the factory, the just in time from end to end, and it sits there completely disconnected from the supply chain. Then the trucks and the trains and the ships are all sitting around also starting to compile their own data. And then the port and the terminal operating systems are compiling their own data. And then the vessel network itself out at sea is compiled. So all of these things are separated from the supply chain. And like we said, there are great companies like Project 44 with a 2 billion market capitalization right now, or valuation. You've got Overhaul, great companies, valuations over $250 million, doing great work to pull all this together. But it can be done by the right device on the container, but a right device that actually lasts over 10 years and also gets to the point where we give information back to everyone within the supply chain. So we're not saying that we're going to shut down Project 44. What we're saying is that 80% of their cost is going to go away. When it comes to the shipping company, what we're saying to them is, do they need, one of our clients has 50,000 containers. They're saying, well, do we only need 40,000? Because now we know where they are. And everybody knows from reading the papers over the last 2 years that there's a lot of empty containers in a lot of yards all over the world. And it's not really, most are really not sure where they are. It's impossible. We're talking about spreadsheets in yards on computers that are disconnected from the cloud. And we're trying to go and find those particular containers and bring them back. Today, the competitors would take a normal mobile phone-based tracking device, stick it onto a container door, and then they'd say every 15 minutes send a message. That means we have a few weeks of life. So what they're doing is they're actually putting it on a trip-by-trip basis. So the container will leave with important products on it. You'll stick in the little tracking device, and when it gets to the destination, while you're working with all of the other different systems that they're trying to interface with, you'll take off the device, you put it in a package, and you post it all the way back to the central office. All that goes away. We move away from time. We move away from 2 or 3 weeks of battery. And we're saying is, we only want to know the important moves that are made. We don't need to track the container on a ship. We don't need to track it on a truck, and we don't need to track it on a train. So in our first pass at this, in the context of dimensioning our energy harvesting and energy management, we took 76% of all energy usage out of our system. That we don't need energy, we don't need it for that. So therefore, straight away, we have years and years of battery life. And now we're using solar power, and we're capitalizing on how we use that so that we only send a message at the key time. For example, we don't need to go to satellite for GPS to find out where we are. We're a cellular network operator. We know where we are already. So a message that comes in at a key stage will give us information that deals with that. So therefore, all of the costs associated with getting to the satellite from an energy perspective is saved. So on the business model and on the revenue, we're revenue generating. Today we're well known within the industry for being the leader in the IoT wireless networks that go on board ships. So that's a very big, solid business that we're stuck right in the middle of. And because of that, we by default are bought into the discussions around smart container tracking, because we're tracking the refrigerated containers with some of the biggest names in the business. We're a strategic partner of Carrier, a $60 billion company today that's a leader in refrigerated containers. Matson's a shipping company that is very dominant in the Pacific and is one of the biggest movers of boxes between China, Japan, and the States. We're there today with them. Panasonic Avionics, because of our history, when it comes to IoT and it comes to wireless technology from an aeronautical perspective, again, we're go-to people because we grew up in that world. Orbcomm is the biggest tracking company in the world right now with devices. We're their strategic partner. We work together with Orbcomm towards Matson in the Pacific. And other companies that we're working towards are big shipping companies like Yang Ming, where they have a specific requirement to start tracking their containers. And what we're finding actually right now is that more and more companies are coming to us saying, we need to track the container. We don't want to do it for a few months. We can't change batteries. We have to put it on once and never go back to the device again. And that's pretty much where our expertise comes in. From a management team perspective, it's important in this industry. There's a bit of history, a bit of what you might call is a gray hair. So Ian Walter and I would have the most gray hair. We've been doing this. This is about our 4th company in a parallel space or direct space, going back to about 1997. So both of us run the company. He's the techie, I'm the commercial guy. We've been working together. We know each other. We know how each other thinks, whatever. Ian O'Shea's our CTO, brilliant Irish operator history. He directs where we're going in the context of all connectivity, all machine learning, all of the work we do with respect to moving containers and understanding that in this AI world. He's the expert there. Paul Gagan and I, we were out in China working for Ericsson, deploying networks back in the 90s. He's fluent in Mandarin. He's working with our Asian shipping company that we've put huge work into now, and we've actually got to beat some of the biggest players in the world so far. Ruth Concannon, everything goes through Ruth. She's the COO. She oversees every operational project, every document, every legal aspect of what we do, every patent, every key decision made from a legal perspective goes through her. She's got a huge expertise in operations. And for example, in our Panasonic project, she ran that for 4 years and she was highly commended. And Jerry O'Sullivan's the gatekeeper when it comes to money. He spends very little and he holds on to everything and gets all of our money in from our customers on time, which is becoming more and more difficult. So I'll wrap that up a little early because I kind of want to get to the Q&A and and get to the heart of what your questions are.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed. Well done, Mike. Thank you. Perhaps you can stop sharing your screen and we can get into the question and answer. Again, just to reconfirm, reiterate, guys, if you've got a question, please put it into the Q&A and we will pass it over to Mike. But anyway, first one in. Everybody is talking about visibility in the supply chain. What are the visibility challenges you're seeing, Mike?
I think the greatest example would be the trucks. When you look at it, and friends of mine have done this. I mean, some people do this quite often. They go off and they take up a trucking opportunity, say in the States or Europe. In North America right now, there's very close to 1 million trucking companies. So each of those trucking companies is a separate owned company with possibly 2 or 3. In fact, the vast majority have less than 6. So they all have dispatchers and they know where every one of those trucks would be right now at this moment in time. But they've got to get that information back to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher has to get it up through the supply chain. That could be an email or a phone call or a text message. The systems that are in place from the trucking company right up through the supply chain, they've got to bring in IT professionals to deal with that. All of that's wiped out overnight by putting a system on a container that's smart.
Very good. Very good.
Excellent. I have one here just on the AI side as well. Just it's AI and machine learning, or terms have been kind of thrown around quite a bit. So are you doing something that's truly unique in this area, and how does it all work?
We, as I was saying, we were the first company to put a wireless network onto a container ship, and we had devices live on the refrigerated containers. And these IoT devices were sending messages back to us. So we captured tens of thousands of messages as we moved through the oceans, and the holds of the ships were opened and they went into ports and into different networks. And we gathered all that up, and then we went to our customer, because we're very respectful and particular about data. We are very different to other companies. We insist, we never cross the line. This is the data that we're gathering for our customer. And in return, the customer asks us to do a lot of work with that data, which is where we all know the revenue is. So we went to them and said, look, we want to work with this data to see what we can give you back that's of value. And that's where this whole opportunity came from. The ability to actually determine, as we move through, intermodal is what we call the movement of containers. It's an intermodal dry container. And the reason is it's moving between different modes. It goes from the truck to the ship, to the port, to the truck, sometimes to the train. And there's one particular investor that's come in this round, and he has 4 containers moving across the Silk Road, which is the new railway line that goes across the whole of Northern Europe. He says he's invested because he has no visibility. They kind of give you a bit of an understanding, and you get a bit of a map, and it looks like there's this breadcrumbing, the Hansel and Gretel thing of where all the crumbs are as you move through, but it's not truly representative.
Very good. No, it's okay. You referred to a new tool set for the supply chain. What do you mean by this, though, Mike? When you said that?
We've never had a situation in the supply chain, and like we get a small bit agitated. There's some very big companies dealing with it, and we have to be very careful. I mean, for example, IBM is a huge player when it comes to the supply chain, and and over the last couple of years, they talk about things like blockchain. And we kind of snigger, because we're saying, without having to know what blockchain is, we're saying, why are we using terms like machine learning and tool sets and all of these things across a disparate set of tools? The terminal operating system, that's what today's refined way of knowing what goes on in a port. That's a tool set that's used by the port, but it's disconnected from others. And if you try to connect it to others, they're trying to standardize it, but the job of taking 2,000 of the biggest intermodal ports in the world and connecting them up and standardizing them is a monstrous task. So what we're saying is, we don't need to do all that hard work. If we have every single container live, and we know definitively where they are all the time, and we know when they move between modes, we've talked to very senior people, in Maersk, in our own existing customers today, and they're pretty much saying that if you get this tool set, which displaces a lot of the stuff that's there today, and that's going to revolutionize how people work with the supply chain, understand where everything is, and then from a cost perspective, the costs just drop dramatically.
Brilliant.
Very good.
And are there any other devices being used currently to track containers, and who are the main competitors in this space, Mike?
I mean, even our own partner, Orbcom, today has a device that they can put onto a container. Typically, they would be the devices that were used for the refrigerated container. They'd be repurposed and put onto the dry container. The difficulty there is that a container that's being refrigerated has power. We move away from power. So we kind of said, we're going to go from the ground up. We're going to go to the IoT world, the new technology that exists there that's very lean when it comes to power requirements. And we're going to build up from there, but then we're also going to learn how the moves take place in the supply chain. So stay away from the clock, stay away from every 15 minutes or every hour, and say, right, if I move off a ship onto a truck, that's a very important, let's say, move. Our competitors aren't doing that. Our competitors are just simply saying, if there's 15 minutes of a window, something's happened. You don't even know that it moved from a ship to the shore.
And obviously that gets rid of a lot of redundancy in the actual signals that have been sent out, obviously, and helps the energy management, I guess, obviously, then, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big thing, Chris. It's like, you only have so much of a battery. If we keep going to this battery, or if we have so much of solar power, we're going to be, remember, we could be stacked up in containers on rows and we've seen this. We were in the Port of Cork with the Live IoT network 4 years ago. We learned from that port. We learned from the team that were down there that really showed us this solar panel could be shut off for weeks, for months. We have to make sure that we're very lean, that we need to know we're on that stack. We need to know that we're not moving. And that's the intelligence that we're building in. And that, therefore, those messages are not happening. And you pull out the container, put it back into the supply chain, and we're back running with plenty of years left.
Very good. On the operation of the product itself, if the device is on a container which is placed in the middle of a stack with no access to sunlight for periods of a few weeks, how does it keep sunlight to keep powered up?
It's not powered up, and that's the key to what we're doing. We're looking at the reciprocal side of it. We're trying to stay powered off and only wake up when we need to. So when we send up to the system and the cloud has it, that container, and we're being very specific here, we're not just on that stack. We could almost tell where on that stack we are, because we have accelerometers today that are that smart. We know from the satellite as we come towards it where we are, or from the network, the wireless network can triangulate and pick up where we are. And when that container sits there, we stop. And I mean, we really stop here. We don't send messages. We don't tell anybody where we are because we're not moving. So we always have recorded in the cloud exactly where we are. But the very first time we're moved, where something happens to move that container, we've built in intelligence, again, power saving intelligence that will determine that. And I have to, without breaching the key magic sauce of what we're doing, we're not keeping the accelerometer running in the background, waiting for that event to happen. That's too inefficient. So we're doing lateral things to make sure that if we move, we can trigger those things to happen.
Very good.
Brilliant. Just a question here. It's kind of a two-part one, just with the, how are you dealing with technical issues, the device redundancies, and secondly, what happens if someone pulls the device off the container, and I suppose, where is it on the container? Is it easy to get to?
So it's very strategically placed, and has to do with the patent that's going through at the moment. We do have it, we've placed it in the part of the container that our clients have told us to place it in. It's the part of the container that's not banged around. It's a difficult place to access in the context of stealing, but these people are very good at stealing. So what happens to us is that if there's any tampering with the device, it's considered to be a law enforcement issue. So that alert takes place. So our device has to be to inform the authorities, because it's the same as breaking a lock or breaking in. If you tamper with the device, you're breaking in, and therefore we do that there. From a maintenance perspective, that's a big issue. We have 3 parallel projects going on with respect to the prototypes of our device, and we're beating them to death in the environment that's one of the toughest. But luckily, we're there a few years. We've seen devices that don't work. We know the IP rating that our device has to be at, and we know we can't go back. We can't go back to the device, so it's all about redundancy. So we have redundant power, we have redundant communications, we have redundant, in the context of even like power management in general. Redundancy is key. We just cannot rely on one single.
There could be millions worth of inventory in some of these containers. So it's always important.
Question, and we'll just do 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. But congratulations on the achievements to date. You mentioned patenting. Can you tell us more about what stops another company designing a similar device? Is the device itself being patented?
So I'll be very open here. Michael Weldon, we've always promoted Michael Weldon from Bandon over the years, because over 20 years of patenting in Ireland, we haven't met anybody, or in the States that's better than him. He works with a small team out of Bandon. Brilliant mind. We give him all the materials. He goes back, and I've never met anybody that comes back with value add in the context from a legal perspective anyway. So he takes the patent, our positioning of it, and he beat it to death. Interestingly, the ideas on the machine learning and the artificial intelligence side were all pushed to the side. He honed in on the locking mechanism, which is truly unique. And this is something we've done closely with our clients to understand where to do it. So we're patenting the locking mechanism and all other intellectual property associated with the devices being built around that. But central to our patent is the physical aspect of how our locking mechanism and the alert to the authorities is unique.
Very good.
Very good. Brilliant. Just another one here. You see, just about the development of wireless technologies like 5G and 6G. How will they help further enable the devices, or what's the technology?
Hugely important point. This is something that's so complex and so missed by many. I mean, I won't even say who it was, but there's been a very big player in this space. They released a tracking product this week, and the tracking product they released this week just missed the point. The point is IoT. Now, up until a few years ago, we didn't have IoT, and people have seen that we've partnered with Vodafone, and it's because Vodafone have gone to what's the true IoT on the cellular world, which is called narrowband. So you have 2 different technologies. You've got either narrowband, LTE, or LTEM, and I won't go into all the technologies, but the point is this technology, narrowband, is 4G and 5G. So in 5G, our technology doesn't change, so it's in both. So it's called narrowband IoT, and it exists across both of them. So we're talking about loads and loads of years ahead. Now, we do have to have what's called 2G, and only the people that are experts in this space realize that the fallback to 2G, it always has to be there. It's a couple of extra dollars in the device, but it would be terribly naive not to have that there. So we're 5G proof, and we're completely legacy proof.
Legacy proof, yeah.
Reason.
Very good. Okay,
Excellent.
Last question, and then we'll wrap up, Mike. How is the device fixed to the container?
At the moment, the industry is asking us to make it strong magnetic-based connectivity to the container in the car-graded slide part that goes in behind the bars of the door. That's the setting that they want to have it in.
Very good.
Excellent.
Lovely. Okay, Mike. Well, listen,
Mike.
There's other questions that have come in here, which we'll again ask offline, but thanks very much for all of those questions that have come in. So listen, thanks very much indeed. And the both campaigns are live on site at the moment, accepting investments. And if anybody wants to ask a question offline, please do so, and we'll be very happy to facilitate that with the 2 teams. So that leaves me to thank you all for attending, and really hope that you like the presentation. And if you'd like to invest, please do. We'd be very happy to take it. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Fergal. Cheers.